Emma Morrison never imagined that a dead battery on a freezing November night would lead her into the arms of the most dangerous man in the city, a ruthless crime lord whose obsession with her had been burning for months. One ride, one dinner, one choice that would shatter everything she thought she knew about survival, love, and the thin line between protection and possession. When his enemies came for her, when blood stained his hands, when she discovered the life growing inside her, she had to decide. Run from the monster or stand beside the man who would burn the world to keep her safe. This is their story. If you're watching, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches across the world. The night Emma Morrison's life changed forever, the temperature had dropped to 18 degrees and her car had finally given up the fight. She sat in the driver's seat of her 12-year-old Honda Civic, hands trembling. Not from the cold that was already seeping through the cracked window seal, but from the bone-deep exhaustion that had become her constant companion. The dashboard lights had flickered twice, then died completely, taking with them the last reserves of heat from the struggling engine. No, 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 no! Emma turned the key again. The engine made a pathetic clicking sound, like it was mocking her. Please, not tonight. But the car was as dead as her bank account, as dead as the dream she'd buried 6 months ago when her mother's medical bills had finally stopped coming, because there was no one left to treat. Emma pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and tried not to cry. She was so damn tired of crying. Through the windshield, she could see the emergency room entrance of St. Catherine's Hospital, warm light spilling out onto the frost-covered parking lot. She'd just finished a double shift, 16 hours of emptying bedpans, checking vitals, dodging the wandering hands of patients who thought scrubs meant she was fair game, and smiling through it all because she needed this job. She needed the money. She needed every single dollar of the $2,847 she cleared each month after taxes, because $2,100 went straight to the medical debt collectors who called her 3 times a day, and the rest went to rent, ramen noodles, and the gas to get her to the next shift. Except now she didn't even have gas money, because her car was dead, and the tow truck would cost at least $200 she didn't have, and a sharp rap on her window made Emma jump so hard she hit her knee on the steering column. A man stood outside her car. Not just any man. Even through the fog on her window, even in the dim orange glow of the parking lot lights, Emma could tell this wasn't someone who belonged in the employee section of a hospital parking lot at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. He was tall, well over 6 feet, and wore a black wool coat that probably cost more than her car had when it was new. Dark hair, perfectly styled, sharp features that looked carved rather than grown, and eyes that, even at a distance, seemed to cut through the glass and the cold in every defense she'd ever built. Emma's hand moved to the door lock, but it was already engaged. Had been since she'd parked 7 hours ago, because this wasn't the best neighborhood, and she'd learned to be careful. The man knocked again, gentler this time. Then he stepped back, giving her space, and lifted his hand slightly, a gesture of peace. Against every instinct screaming at her to stay locked in her dead car until the sun came up, Emma cracked the window half an inch. Car trouble? His voice was accented, Russian, maybe, and smoother than any voice had a right to be at this hour. I'm fine. Thank you. Emma's voice came out steadier than she felt. You're shaking. It wasn't a question. I'm cold. Your car is dead. I've called for help. The lie came easily. She hadn't called anyone because she couldn't afford help, but this stranger didn't need to know that. The man tilted his head slightly, studying her in a way that made her skin prickle. Not with fear exactly, with something else, something that felt dangerously like recognition, though she'd never seen him before in her life. What's your name? He asked. Why? Because I'd like to know who I'm offering a ride to. I don't need a ride. Emma. He said her name like he already knew it, like he'd said it before. Emma Morrison, 23, nurse's aide at St. Catherine's. You work doubles on Tuesdays and Thursdays, singles on Saturdays. You take your coffee black with 2 sugars from the vending machine on the 3rd floor because the cafeteria coffee tastes like cigarettes. You have $73,842 in medical debt from your mother's cancer treatment, and you've been sitting in this parking lot for 6 minutes trying to figure out how you're going to get home. Emma's blood turned to ice. Who the hell are you? Someone who's been waiting for the right moment to meet you. He pulled a business card from his coat pocket and held it to the window gap. My name is Dmitry Antonov, and I'm going to drive you home now, because if you stay in this car much longer, you'll develop hypothermia. I'm not getting in a car with a stranger who knows my name. I'm not a stranger, Emma. I've known you for 4 months. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. I know you eat lunch alone in your car because the other nurses talk about you when you're not there. I know you visit your mother's grave every Sunday at 2 o'clock, and you bring daisies because roses are too expensive. I know you haven't slept more than 4 hours a night since she died. And I know that right now you're scared and cold and so tired you can barely think straight. You're insane. Emma reached for her phone with shaking hands. I'm calling the police. Your phone is at 6% battery. You'll need it to get an Uber once you realize I'm not going to hurt you. Emma stared at him. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of situation they warned you about in every safety seminar, every self-defense class, every cautionary tale that started with, she thought she was being careful. But he was right about everything. The coffee, the debt, the cemetery. Details no one should know unless they'd been watching her for 4 months? Emma's voice cracked. 4 months, 1 week, and 3 days. Dmitry's expression remained maddeningly calm. The first time I saw you, you were coming out of the hospital after a night shift. You stopped to give your jacket to a homeless man, even though it was raining and you didn't have another one. You were soaked by the time you got to your car. I thought you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. That's not romantic, that's stalking. Yes. He didn't even try to deny it. It is. And I'm not going to apologize for it, because apologizing would mean regretting it, and I don't regret a single moment of knowing you, Emma, even from a distance. Emma should have been terrified, should have screamed, should have run, should have done literally anything other than what she did next. She unlocked the door. One wrong move, she said, her voice steadier than her hands. And I'll kick you so hard you'll be singing soprano. I've worked in healthcare for 3 years. I know exactly where to aim. Dmitry's lips curved into the faintest smile. I would expect nothing less. Scent. The inside of Dmitry's car was warm. Almost too warm, after the biting cold of her Honda. Emma sank into the leather passenger seat and felt heat seep into her bones for the first time in hours. The car itself was ridiculous, some kind of luxury sedan with interior lighting that glowed a soft blue and seats that felt like they were hugging her. It smelled like expensive cologne and new leather and something else. Something darker that Emma couldn't quite place. Dmitry slid into the driver's seat with the kind of fluid grace that seemed choreographed. He adjusted the heat without asking, directing the vents toward her, then pulled out of the parking lot with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted a single decision in his life. Where do you live? He asked. Emma rattled off her address, a studio apartment in a converted motel 20 minutes away. She immediately regretted it, but what was she supposed to do? Give him a fake address and walk the last 5 miles? The Riverside Apartments, Dmitry said. Studio 2C. You've lived there for 7 months. Your neighbors are a retired postal worker named Frank, who feeds stray cats, and a couple in their 20s who fight every Wednesday night at approximately 9:15. Okay, you need to stop doing that. Emma turned in her seat to face him. The knowing things about me thing. It's creepy. Would you prefer I pretend not to know you? I'd prefer you tell me why you've been watching me like some kind of serial killer. I'm not a serial killer, Emma. That's exactly what a serial killer would say. Dmitry glanced at her, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his expression. Amusement, maybe. Or appreciation. Fair point, he conceded. They drove in silence for a moment. Emma studied him from the corner of her eye, trying to reconcile the danger she felt radiating off him with the careful way he drove. Exactly the speed limit, full stops at every sign, turn signals even when there was no one else on the road. Why me? She finally asked. Why not you? Because I'm nobody. I'm a nurse's aide with debt up to my eyeballs, a dead car, and scrubs that smell like hospital bleach. I eat 79-cent ramen for dinner, and I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years. Men like you, she gestured at him, at the car, at everything he represented, don't notice women like me. Men like me, Dmitry said quietly, notice everything, especially things worth noticing. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. He turned onto her street. The rest requires time and trust, and I don't expect you to give me either one tonight. Emma's apartment building appeared ahead, a squat, ugly structure with peeling paint and a flickering sign that read River Eat Apart ENTS. The R and M had burned out months ago, and the landlord hadn't bothered fixing them. Dmitri pulled into a visitor's spot and put the car in park. He made no move to get out, no move toward her. He simply sat there, hands on the steering wheel, waiting. "Thank you for the ride," Emma said. She reached for the door handle. "Emma?" She stopped. "I'm going to give you my number. You don't have to call it. You don't have to text. But if you ever need anything, a ride, help with your car, someone to talk to at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep, I want you to know you have someone." "Why would you do that for a stranger?" "Because you're not a stranger to me." Dmitri pulled out his phone and held it up. "May I have your number? I'll text you so you have mine." Every rational part of Emma's brain screamed at her to say no, to get out of the car, walk into her apartment, and forget this entire surreal encounter. But the irrational part, the part that had been drowning in loneliness and exhaustion and the crushing weight of doing everything alone, whispered something different. What if? Emma recited her number. Her phone buzzed a moment later. A text from an unknown number. "This is Dmitri. Sleep well, Emma." "I won't call you," she said. "I know. I probably won't even save your number." "I know that too." Emma opened the door. Cold air rushed in, chasing away the warmth. She hesitated. "How did you know?" she asked. "About the debt. About my mother. About everything." Dmitri met her eyes. In the dim light of the car, his expression was unreadable. "Because when I want to know someone, Emma, I learn everything. It's what I do." "What are you, some kind of private investigator?" "No." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm something much worse." Emma should have been afraid, should have run, should have blocked his number and filed a police report. Instead, she said, "Good night, Dmitri." "Good night, Emma." She watched his car disappear down the street before she went inside. And when she finally collapsed onto her mattress on the floor, she'd sold the bed frame 3 months ago. She didn't delete his number. She saved it. And she hated herself a little bit for wondering when he'd text again. Bomtum. 3 days passed before Emma heard from Dmitri again. 3 days of doubles and singles and ramen dinners. 3 days of dodging phone calls from debt collectors and watching her checking account dwindle. 3 days of catching herself looking at her phone, wondering if he'd reach out, then feeling disgusted with herself for caring. The text came on Friday at 11:47 p.m., exactly the same time he'd found her in the parking lot. Known. Number: "Have you eaten dinner?" Emma stared at her phone. She was in bed, well, mattress on floor, wearing a ratty t-shirt and sweatpants with holes in both knees. She'd gotten home from her shift 20 minutes ago, showered off the hospital smell, and crawled under her blankets with no intention of moving until morning. Emma: "It's almost midnight." Dmitri: "That's not an answer." Emma: "I had ramen." Dmitri: "That's not dinner. That's flavored salt water." Emma: "It's what I can afford." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Emma watched them, her heart doing something stupid in her chest. Dmitri: "I'm downstairs." Emma bolted upright. "What?" She scrambled to her window and looked down at the parking lot. Sure enough, a black sedan sat in the visitor's spot, engine running, headlights on. Her phone buzzed again. Dmitri: "Come down. I brought food." Emma: "It's midnight." Dmitri: You're awake. I'm awake. The food is getting cold. These are solvable problems." Emma: "I'm in my pajamas." Dmitri: "I don't care what you're wearing, Emma. Come down." She should have ignored him, should have turned off her phone and gone to sleep. Instead, she pulled on her coat over her pajamas, shoved her feet into sneakers without bothering to tie them, and headed downstairs. Dmitri was leaning against his car when she emerged, holding 2 paper bags that smelled like heaven. Real food. Actual, hot, not from a packet food. "You're insane," Emma said by way of greeting. "So you've mentioned." He handed her one of the bags. "Thai food. I didn't know what you liked, so I got pad thai, green curry, spring rolls, and mango sticky rice." Emma's stomach growled so loudly she was certain he heard it. This must have cost... Don't. Dimitri's voice was gentle but firm. Don't calculate the cost. Don't worry about paying me back. Just eat. They sat in his car with the heat running and the radio playing something low and instrumental. Emma tried to eat slowly, to maintain some dignity, but she was starving and the food was incredible, and she couldn't remember the last time someone had done something this kind for her without expecting anything in return. This is really good, she mumbled around a mouthful of pad thai. There's a place in the city. They know me. Dimitri wasn't eating. He was watching her, that same intense focus from 3 nights ago. I can take you there sometime, if you'd like. Why are you doing this? Because you're eating ramen for dinner when you work 16-hour shifts saving lives. I'm not saving lives. I'm a nurse's aide. I take blood pressure and change sheets. You held Mrs. Patterson's hand for 20 minutes last Tuesday while she waited for her daughter to arrive. You talked to her about her garden and her grandchildren, and you made her laugh even though she was scared. Dimitri's voice was soft. You saved her from being alone in a moment when alone is the scariest thing in the world. That's saving a life, Emma. Emma's throat tightened. How did you... I told you. When I want to know someone, I learn everything. That's still creepy. I know. He didn't apologize. They ate in comfortable silence. Emma worked her way through the pad thai and started on the curry while Dimitri finally picked at the spring rolls. The car was warm. The music was soothing. And for the first time in 6 months, Emma felt something other than exhausted. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. What do you do? For work, I mean. This car, the expensive coat, the ability to buy ridiculous amounts of Thai food at midnight. You're clearly not hurting for money. Dimitri was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. I run a business, import and export mostly. Some investments, some consulting. That's the vaguest answer I've ever heard. It's the safest one. Emma turned to look at him, really look at him. The sharp suit under the expensive coat, the watch on his wrist that probably cost more than her yearly salary, the way he held himself like someone who'd never had to ask permission for anything. Are you a criminal? She asked. Dimitri's expression didn't change. Would it matter if I was? Yes, obviously. Why? Because I don't... Emma gestured helplessly. I'm a nurse's aide. I follow rules. I pay my taxes. I don't speed. I've never even gotten a parking ticket. I can't be involved with someone who... We're not involved, Emma. His voice was quiet. We're 2 people eating Thai food in a car. That's all. Is it? Dimitri met her eyes. In the dim light of the car's interior, his expression was raw in a way she hadn't seen before. No, he said. It's not. But I'm trying to give you the choice to walk away before it becomes something more. What if I don't want to walk away? Then I'll take you to dinner tomorrow night. Somewhere nice. Somewhere you can wear something other than pajamas and hospital scrubs. I don't have anything to wear to somewhere nice. I'll send you something. I'm not a charity case, Emma. Dimitri reached across the center console and took her hand. His touch was warm, firm, and sent electricity racing up her arm. You are the furthest thing from a charity case I've ever met. You work yourself to exhaustion to pay off debts that weren't even yours. You give your jacket to homeless men in the rain. You make dying women laugh in hospital rooms. You are extraordinary. And if I want to buy you a dress so I can take you to dinner, it's not charity. It's me being selfish because I want to see you in something beautiful, sitting across from me, without having to watch you through windows and parking lots. Emma's breath caught. You're really good at this. At what? Saying things that make it impossible to say no. Dimitri's lips curved into a small smile. Is that a yes to dinner? It's a maybe. Emma squeezed his hand once, then pulled away. Ask me again tomorrow, when I've had sleep and can think clearly. Fair enough? Emma gathered the empty containers and reached for the door handle. Then she stopped. Dimitri? Yes? Thank you. For the food. For the ride the other night. For... She trailed off, not quite sure how to finish. For seeing you? He offered quietly. Yeah, for that. Emma got out of the car and walked back to her apartment. When she reached her door, she turned back. Dmitri was still sitting in his car, watching her, making sure she got inside safely. She lifted her hand in a small wave. He raised his in return. And when Emma finally fell asleep that night, full and warm for the first time in recent memory, she dreamed of dark eyes and dangerous promises and the feeling of being seen by someone who looked at her like she mattered. The dress arrived the next morning. Emma had just finished her overnight shift and was trudging up the stairs to her apartment when she saw the box. Large, black, tied with a silver ribbon that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Her name was written on the card in elegant script. For tonight, if you'll have me, D. Emma carried the box inside with trembling hands. She shouldn't open it. She should send it back. She should text Dmitri and tell him this was too much, too fast, too everything. She opened it. The dress was midnight blue, the color of the sky just before full dark. Silk. Simple in design, but clearly expensive. The kind of expensive that didn't need logos or labels because the quality spoke for itself. It came with shoes. Heels, delicate and elegant. And a clutch that matched perfectly. Emma's phone buzzed. Dmitri. I'll pick you up at 7. We have reservations at 8. Emma. I haven't said yes yet. Dmitri. You opened the box. Emma. How did you know that? Dmitri. Because I know you, Emma, and you're curious. You're careful and smart, and you know this is dangerous. But you're also tired of being alone, and I'm offering you one night where you don't have to be. Emma stared at the dress, at her reflection in the mirror, scrubs, messy hair, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. When was the last time someone had made her feel like this? Wanted, seen, worth the effort. Emma. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. Dmitri. I wouldn't dream of it. Dmitri arrived at 6:58 p.m. Emma watched from her window as he got out of the car. Not the sedan from last night, but something sleeker, lower. The kind of car that purred instead of hummed. He wore a black suit with a black shirt, no tie. He looked like sin and salvation wrapped in expensive Italian fabric. Emma took one last look at herself in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly. The shoes were surprisingly comfortable. She'd done her makeup with the ancient collection she'd bought for her mother's funeral and barely touched since. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in waves she'd coaxed from her usual messy bun. She looked like someone else, someone who belonged in nice restaurants and luxury cars and the company of dangerous men. The knock on her door came exactly at 7. Emma opened it. Dmitri went completely still. His eyes traveled from her face to her dress to her shoes and back again, and something in his expression cracked open, just for a moment, revealing hunger so intense Emma felt it like a physical touch. Emma. Her name came out rough, reverent. You're devastating. It's the dress. No. He stepped closer, and Emma caught the scent of his cologne, something dark and cedar-tinged. It's you. It's always been you. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. We should go, before we're late. We could be late. I thought you had reservations. I own the restaurant. They'll wait. Of course he did. Of course they would. Emma grabbed the clutch and stepped out of her apartment, locking the door behind her. Let's go anyway. Dmitri offered his arm. After a moment's hesitation, Emma took it. They descended the stairs together, and if her neighbors were watching, and they definitely were, Emma couldn't bring herself to care. Let them look. Let them whisper. For one night, she was going to be someone other than the struggling nurse's aide with the dead mother and the mountain of debt. For one night, she was going to be seen. The drive to the restaurant took 40 minutes. They talked the entire way. About books, about music, about the small things that made up a life. Dmitri told her about growing up in Moscow, about cold winters and his grandmother's cooking. Emma told him about her mother's garden, about the year they'd grown tomatoes that won second place at the county fair. They didn't talk about his business. They didn't talk about her debt. They just talked. The restaurant was called Luminescence, and it occupied the top floor of a building downtown that Emma had passed 100 times but never entered. The kind of place where valets took your car and doormen opened doors, and the host greeted Dmitri by name. Mr. Antonov, your table is ready. They were led to a private room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Candles flickered on the table. Wine was poured without being ordered. Menus appeared and disappeared. Emma sat across from Dmitri and felt like she'd stepped into someone else's life. "This is too much," she whispered. "This is the bare minimum of what you deserve." Dmitri raised his wine glass. "To new beginnings." Emma clinked her glass against his. "To terrible decisions." He laughed. A real laugh, rich and genuine. "I'll drink to that." The food was exquisite. Course after course of things Emma couldn't pronounce but tasted like art. Dmitri explained each dish, told her the stories behind them, made her laugh with tales of culinary disasters from his youth. "You can cook?" Emma asked, incredulous. "I can burn water with impressive consistency, but I appreciate those who can't." He gestured to the plates before them. Hence the restaurant ownership. "How many restaurants do you own?" "4 in this city, 7 total." "What else do you own?" Dmitri's expression shifted slightly. Still warm, but guarded. "Many things, Emma. Not all of them I'm proud of. But you're proud of the restaurants." "I'm proud of anything that creates beauty, food, art, architecture." His eyes held hers. "Beautiful women in blue dresses who let me take them to dinner." Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You're very smooth." "I'm very honest." Is that what this is? Honesty? What do you want it to be?" Emma set down her fork. "I want to know what I'm getting into. I want to know why a man like you is interested in a woman like me. I want to know what happens when this dinner ends and we go back to real life." Dmitri was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, walked around the table, and knelt beside her chair so they were eye level. "Real life is what we make it, Emma. And what I want to make with you is something real. Something that doesn't end when the check comes." He took her hand. "I know you're scared. I know I come with complications you can't possibly understand yet. But I also know that from the moment I saw you give away your jacket in the rain, I haven't been able to think about anything but you. You, your kindness, your strength, the way you keep fighting even when everything's stacked against you." "Dmitri, I'm not asking you to trust me completely. Not tonight. I'm just asking you to give me a chance to earn it. One dinner at a time, one conversation, one moment where you let me be the person who makes sure you eat more than ramen." Emma's throat tightened. "What if this ends badly?" "Then I'll make sure you walk away safely. I promise you that." His thumb traced circles on her hand. "But what if it doesn't? What if this is the beginning of something neither of us expected but both of us need?" Emma looked at this man kneeling beside her chair in a private room overlooking a city that stretched to the horizon. This man who knew her favorite coffee order and her mother's favorite flower. This man who terrified her and thrilled her and made her feel alive for the first time in so long. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? Okay, I'll give you a chance. One dinner at a time." Dmitri's smile was brilliant, transformative. He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, a gesture so old-fashioned and intimate that Emma's breath caught. "Thank you," he said. They finished dinner in comfortable intimacy, the kind that came from choosing vulnerability over safety. When the check came, though no actual check appeared, Dmitri helped Emma with her coat and led her back through the restaurant. The drive home was quieter. Emma felt the wine warming her blood, felt the weight of what she'd agreed to settling over her shoulders. This was dangerous. This was reckless. This was everything she'd sworn she'd never do. But when Dmitri pulled up to her apartment and walked her to her door, when he stood there in the hallway with his hands in his pockets and his eyes on hers, Emma realized she didn't care about any of it. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "For the dress, the dinner, Dmitri kissed her. It was soft at first, questioning. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and Emma felt herself melting into him, her hands finding his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath the expensive fabric. Then the kiss deepened, became something more urgent, more desperate. Emma pressed herself against him and felt him shudder, felt his control slip for just a moment before he pulled back, breathing hard. "I should go," he said, voice rough. "You should." Neither of them moved. "Emma, stay." The word was out before she could stop it. "Just for a little while, we don't have to. I just don't want to be alone tonight." Dmitri searched her face. "Are you sure?" "No, but stay anyway." He followed her inside. They sat on her mattress on the floor, backs against the wall, sharing the single blanket Emma owned. They talked until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing, about childhoods and dreams and the people they'd lost. Dmitri told her about his father, dead for 10 years. Emma told him about her mother's last days. They traded sorrows like currency, building something fragile and real between them. When Emma finally fell asleep, her head on Dmitri's shoulder, she felt safe for the first time since she couldn't remember when. And when she woke at dawn, Dmitri was gone. But there was a note on her pillow. Had to leave for work. Lock your door. Eat breakfast. Text me when you're awake. D. Under the note was $500 in cash. Emma's first instinct was to be angry, to feel bought. But then she saw the second note underneath. Not charity, not payment. Just me making sure you eat something other than ramen while I figure out how to fix your car. Please don't fight me on this. D. Emma sat on her mattress, holding the money, and felt something crack open in her chest. This was dangerous. This was reckless. This was going to end badly. But for the first time in a year, she had $500 and a full stomach and someone who cared if she ate breakfast. For the first time in a year, she wasn't alone. Emma picked up her phone and texted, "I'm awake. Thank you for everything." The response came immediately. "Have dinner with me tonight?" Emma smiled. "What time?" "I'll text you the details. Wear something comfortable. We're staying in." "In where?" "My place. I want to cook for you." "You said you burn water." I said I burn water with impressive consistency. I never said I'd stop trying to improve." Emma laughed out loud in her empty apartment. 7 o'clock? Perfect. I'll send a car. Dmitri? Yes? I'm terrified. Good. So am I. What are we doing? Something reckless, something dangerous, something that feels right despite everything that says it shouldn't. Emma stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she typed, "I'll see you at 7. I can't wait." Emma set down her phone and looked around her tiny apartment, at the mattress on the floor, at the empty fridge, at the pile of bills on the counter that she still couldn't pay. This was her life. This was her reality. But tonight, for a few hours, she was going to step into someone else's. Someone who wore silk dresses and ate in private dining rooms and let dangerous men kiss her in hallways. Tonight, she was going to let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could come from something reckless. Emma got up, pocketed the cash, and headed for the shower. She had a feeling she was going to need all the courage she could muster for what came next. The car that arrived at 6:30 was not driven by Dmitri. Emma stood at her window, watching as a sleek black SUV pulled into the parking lot. The driver who emerged wore a dark suit and moved with the kind of precision that suggested military training. He opened the back door and waited, perfectly still, perfectly patient. Emma's phone buzzed. "Dmitri, that's Marcus. He works for me. I trust him with my life. More importantly, I trust him with yours." "Miss Emma, why aren't you picking me up yourself?" "Dmitri, because I'm at home burning our dinner and need every available minute to make it edible. Marcus will bring you safely to me, I promise." Despite her nervousness, Emma smiled. She'd spent the entire day oscillating between excitement and terror, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on jeans and a soft sweater. Comfortable, like Dmitri had suggested, but still nice enough that she didn't feel completely out of her depth. She grabbed her purse and headed downstairs. Marcus nodded as she approached. "Miss Morrison, I'm Marcus Volkov. Mr. Antonov asked me to drive you this evening." "Thank you." Emma slid into the back seat, noting the leather interior, the tinted windows, the subtle division between front and back that offered privacy. The drive took longer than she expected. They left her neighborhood, wound through the city center, then climbed into the hills where houses became estates and gates became necessary. Emma watched the world transform outside her window, from struggling to surviving to thriving, and felt increasingly out of place. Finally, Marcus turned down a private drive lined with trees whose branches formed a canopy overhead. At the end sat a house that made Emma's breath catch. It wasn't a mansion in the ostentatious sense. It was modern, all clean lines and enormous windows, built into the hillside so it seemed to emerge from the landscape itself. Warm light glowed from inside, and Emma could see the city stretched out below, like a carpet of stars. "We've arrived, Miss Morrison." Marcus opened her door. This is where Dmitri lives? Yes, ma'am. Emma stepped out, her legs unsteady. The front door opened before she reached it, and there was Dmitri, wearing jeans and a black t-shirt, looking somehow more dangerous in casual clothes than he had in his expensive suits. Emma! He smiled, genuine and warm. Welcome. Your home is beautiful. Wait until you see the kitchen. I've turned it into a war zone. He took her hand and led her inside. The interior was as stunning as the exterior. High ceilings, minimalist furniture, art on the walls that Emma suspected was worth more than she'd earn in a lifetime. But Dmitri led her past all of it, through a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows, to a kitchen that was indeed in a state of controlled chaos, pots on every burner, vegetables in various states of preparation, something that might have been sauce splattered across the counter. And in the middle of it all, a cookbook open to a page titled Simple Pasta Primavera. Emma burst out laughing. You're mocking my suffering, Dmitri said, but he was grinning. You own 4 restaurants and you're making pasta from a cookbook? I own restaurants. I don't cook in them. There's a significant difference. He handed her a glass of wine. Also, I may have been overly optimistic about my abilities. What were you trying to make? Something impressive. Something that would make you think I was talented and cultured and worthy of your time. And instead? Instead, I've made a mess and ordered backup. He gestured to his phone on the counter. There's a very nice Italian place that delivers. They know me. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Emma set down her wine and rolled up her sleeves. Or I could help you finish what you started. You don't have to do that. I want to. She surveyed the damage. Besides, if we're doing this, whatever this is, you should know that I'm a pretty decent cook. My mom taught me. It was one of the things we did together before she got sick. Something shifted in Dmitri's expression, softened. Then I would be honored to have your help. They worked side by side, and Emma fell into the familiar rhythm of cooking. She salvaged the sauce, showed Dmitri how to properly chop vegetables, rescued the pasta from the brink of mushiness. They moved around each other with surprising ease, and somewhere between the garlic and the wine and the laughter, Emma forgot to be nervous. Taste this, she said, holding up a spoonful of sauce. Dmitri leaned in, his eyes on hers, and tasted. Perfect. The sauce or the moment? Both. They ate at the kitchen island rather than the formal dining room, plates piled high with pasta. More wine poured, conversation flowing as easily as it had the night before. Dmitri told her about buying the house 3 years ago, about the architect who'd designed it, about the view from the bedroom at sunrise. I'd like to show you sometime, he said quietly. Emma's heart skipped. The sunrise? Everything. All of it. Every room in this house, every view, every piece of art I've collected because it reminded me of beauty I couldn't quite name until I met you. Dmitri, I know this is fast. I know you barely know me. But Emma, I haven't felt this alive in years. Maybe ever. He reached across the island and took her hand. You make me want to be someone different. Someone better. You don't have to be different for me. Don't I? His thumb traced circles on her palm. What if the person I am isn't someone you can accept? What if you let me decide that for myself? They moved to the living room after dinner, to the enormous windows overlooking the city. Dmitri built a fire in the fireplace, and managed to do it competently, which made Emma tease him about having at least one domestic skill, and they sat on the couch with what remained of the wine. Can I ask you something? Emma said. Anything. The other night, you said you were something worse than a private investigator. What did you mean? Dmitri was quiet for a long moment. The firelight played across his features, highlighting the sharp angles of his face. Are you sure you want to know? Would I be asking if I wasn't? Some questions are better left unasked, Emma. Some answers change everything. I want to know anyway. Dmitri set down his wine glass. My family came to America when I was 15. My father was what you might call an entrepreneur. He saw opportunities others didn't. He took risks others wouldn't. And he built an empire from nothing but ambition and ruthlessness. What kind of empire? The kind that operates in shadows. The kind that doesn't appear on tax returns or business licenses. Dmitri's voice was steady, almost clinical. When he died, that empire passed to me. I was 23, younger than you are now. I could have walked away, sold everything, started clean. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He turned to face her fully. I expanded it, refined it, made it more profitable and more dangerous than my father ever dreamed. And now I run an organization that controls everything from shipping to real estate to things I won't name because saying them out loud would make you complicit in knowing. Emma's mouth went dry. You're telling me you're a criminal? I'm telling you I'm a crime lord, Emma. There's a difference. A criminal breaks laws. A crime lord makes them irrelevant. The world seemed to tilt. Emma stood, needing distance, needing air. She walked to the windows and stared out at the city lights, her reflection ghostly in the glass. How many people have you hurt? She asked. More than I can count. Fewer than I could have. Have you killed anyone? Do you really want me to answer that? Emma closed her eyes. Yes. Then yes, I have. Not often. Not without cause. But yes. And you thought, what? That you'd tell me this and I'd just accept it? That I'd be okay with dinner and wine and cooking pasta with a murderer? No. Dimitri's voice came from right behind her. She hadn't heard him move. I thought you deserved the truth before this went any further. I thought you deserved the choice to walk away while you still could. While I still could? What does that mean? It means that the longer you stay, the harder it will be for me to let you go, and the more dangerous it becomes for you to be near me. Emma turned to face him. He was close enough to touch, close enough that she could see the firelight reflected in his dark eyes. Why me? She asked again. Why not someone from your world? Someone who already knows the rules. Because everyone in my world wants something from me. Power, money, protection, favor. Dimitri reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch impossibly gentle. You're the first person in 10 years who looked at me and saw just a man. Not a name, not a weapon, just someone who wanted to make sure you got home safely. That man doesn't exist, Dimitri. Not if everything you just told me is true. Then maybe you saw who I want to be instead of who I am. Emma wanted to walk away. Wanted to demand Marcus drive her home immediately. Wanted to block Dimitri's number and forget any of this had ever happened. But she couldn't stop looking at him. Couldn't stop remembering the way he'd knelt beside her chair at the restaurant. The way he'd held her while she slept. The way he'd left her money not as payment, but as care. I should go, she said. I know. This is insane. You're insane. I'm insane for even considering, but I know that too. Then why aren't you calling Marcus to take me home? Because you haven't asked me to. Dimitri's hand slid from her hair to her cheek. And because I'm selfish enough to steal every second you're willing to give me before you run. I should run right now. Probably. Any sane person would. Absolutely. Emma's breath caught. What if I'm not sane anymore? Then we'll be reckless together. He kissed her the way he had in her hallway, soft at first, questioning. But this time, Emma didn't hold back. She pressed against him, fisted her hands in his shirt, kissed him with all the fear and longing and confusion churning inside her. Dimitri made a sound low in his throat and wrapped his arms around her, lifting her slightly so her feet left the floor. Emma gasped against his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, kissed her deeper, walked them backward until her shoulders hit the window. The glass was cold against her back. Dimitri was warm against her front. The contrast made her shiver, made her arch into him, made her forget every reason this was a terrible idea. Emma. Her name was a prayer and a curse. If you want me to stop, don't stop. We should talk about this, about what it means. About... Emma kissed him again, harder this time, and felt his control shatter. His hand slid under her sweater, hot against her skin. Emma tugged at his shirt, and he broke the kiss only long enough to pull it over his head. Bedroom, he managed. Here, Emma. Here, Dimitri. Now. They barely made it to the couch. Clothes disappeared between desperate kisses and fumbling hands. Emma had never felt like this. Consumed, desperate, fearless. She should have been terrified. Should have been thinking about consequences and tomorrow and everything that could go wrong. Instead, she was thinking about Dimitri's hands on her body, his mouth on her throat, the way he whispered her name like she was something sacred, Afterward, they lay tangled together on the couch, the fire burning low, their breathing slowly returning to normal. Dmitri pulled a throw blanket over them and held Emma against his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "I should regret this," Emma said quietly. "But you don't." "I should. Any rational person would. We've established you're not entirely rational anymore." Emma laughed despite herself. "This is your fault. I accept full responsibility." Dmitri pressed a kiss to her hair. "Stay tonight. Not for this, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't want you again. But stay, because I want to wake up with you. I want to make you breakfast. I want to show you the sunrise from the bedroom you haven't seen yet. I have work tomorrow. Call in sick." "I can't afford to call in sick. I'll pay you whatever you'd lose." "Dmitri, not as charity, not as payment, but because I want you here and I have the means to make it possible. Let me do this for you, Emma. Let me give you one day where you don't have to worry about money or debt or anything except being here with me." Emma should have said no, should have maintained some boundary, some sense of self-preservation. "Okay," she whispered instead. "Okay? One day, but tomorrow night I go home, back to reality." "Deal." Dmitri tightened his arms around her. "Though I'm going to do everything in my power to make you want to stay longer." They eventually moved to the bedroom, where the promised sunrise view was even more spectacular than advertised. They made love again, slower this time, learning each other's bodies with more patience. And when Emma finally fell asleep in Dmitri's arms, in sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent, she felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. Safe. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. She sat up, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar luxuries surrounding her, then remembered. Everything. All of it. Dmitri appeared in the doorway wearing sweatpants and nothing else, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "Good morning, beautiful." He handed her a mug. "Black with 2 sugars." "You remembered." "I remember everything about you." He slid back into bed beside her. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." Emma sipped the coffee. Perfect temperature. Perfect sweetness. "What time is it?" "Almost noon." "Noon? I never sleep until noon." "You were exhausted. Your body needed the rest." Dmitri kissed her shoulder. "I called your work, told them you had a family emergency and wouldn't be in for the next 2 days. Emma nearly dropped her coffee. 2 days? "Dmitri, I said one." "I know what you said, but I'm greedy and you're here and I want 48 hours with you before the world intrudes again." He took the mug from her hands and set it on the nightstand. "Let me be selfish. Let me keep you in this bed and feed you and make you laugh and show you what it's like to be worshipped the way you deserve." That's not real life. For 2 days it can be. Emma knew she should protest, should insist on going home, on maintaining some semblance of normalcy. But the truth was she didn't want to. She wanted to stay in this beautiful house with this dangerous man and pretend, just for a little while, that they were normal people falling for each other in normal ways. 2 days, she said, but then I go back. No arguments. No arguments. Dmitri's smile was brilliant, though I reserve the right to try to convince you otherwise. They spent the day in a haze of intimacy and discovery. Dmitri showed Emma his home office, surprisingly sparse, with just a desk, a computer, and a wall of books. They cooked lunch together, or rather Emma cooked while Dmitri watched and occasionally attempted to help. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, building a foundation of shared stories and stolen moments. That evening, as they sat on the terrace watching the sun set over the city, Emma felt herself falling, not just for Dmitri, though that was happening too terrifyingly fast, but for the possibility of this, of being wanted, of mattering to someone who looked at her like she hung the moon. "What are you thinking?" Dmitri asked. "That this feels like a dream, and I'm scared of waking up." "Then don't wake up. Stay here with me." "Eventually I have to go back, Dmitri. I have a job. Bills. A life that exists outside this." She gestured at the house, the view, him, whatever this is. "What if I told you that you didn't have to go back to that life? What if I could give you something different?" Emma's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I could pay off your debt tomorrow. All of it. You'd never have to worry about collectors calling or working doubles or choosing between food and rent. No, Emma stood abruptly. Absolutely not. Emma, I'm not your charity case, Dmitri, and I'm not some pretty thing you get to buy and keep. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Because it sounds like you want to pay for me, like I'm something that can be purchased. Dmitri stood too, frustration flashing across his features. I want to take care of you. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you want to turn me into someone dependent on you, someone who can't leave because she's trapped by money instead of choice. You think I want to trap you? His voice rose. Emma, if I wanted you trapped, I'd have done it already. I have the means, the connections. I could make you disappear into a life where you had no choice but to stay with me. But I'm not doing that because what I want is your choice, your genuine, freely given choice to be here. Then why offer to pay my debt? Why not just let me keep my independence? Because watching you kill yourself to pay off bills that should never have been yours is torture. Because you deserve better than ramen dinners and a mattress on the floor. Because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes and you have none, and that's not fair. Life isn't fair, Dmitri. You of all people should know that. They stared at each other across the terrace, the sunset painting everything in shades of gold and red. Emma's heart was pounding. This was it, the moment where the fantasy crashed into reality and she had to decide what she was willing to accept. I need you to understand something, she said quietly. I've spent the last year of my life feeling helpless, watching my mother die, watching debt pile up, watching every dream I had slip away because I couldn't afford to chase them. The only thing I've had, the only thing that's kept me going, is knowing that I'm doing it myself, that I'm surviving on my own terms. Emma, if you pay my debt, I lose that. I become someone who needed rescuing, someone who couldn't make it without a rich boyfriend swooping in to save her, and I can't— Her voice cracked. I can't be that person, not even for you. Dmitri crossed to her in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Emma resisted for a moment, then collapsed against him, all the fight draining out of her. I'm sorry, he murmured into her hair. You're right. I wasn't thinking about how it would make you feel. I was only thinking about fixing it because that's what I do. I fix problems. But you're not a problem to be fixed, Emma. You're a woman who's already doing the impossible all by herself. I'm so tired, Dmitri. I know, love, I know. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other as the sun disappeared and the city lights began to flicker on below. Finally, Emma pulled back enough to look up at him. Can we make a deal? She asked. Anything. You don't pay my debt, but maybe you could help me find a better job? Something that pays more so I can actually make progress instead of just treading water? Dmitri smiled. I can do that. I know people at 3 different hospitals. I'll make some calls. Just calls, not threats or bribes or whatever it is you do. Just calls. I promise. He kissed her forehead. Can I still buy you dinner occasionally and fix your car when it breaks down and make sure you're eating more than instant noodles? Yes to dinner, yes to the car, but I'm cooking the dinners we have here so you actually learn how to feed yourself. Deal. They went back inside as the temperature dropped. Dmitri built another fire while Emma curled up on the couch with a book from his shelf, a worn copy of Russian poetry that he'd clearly read many times. He sat beside her, laptop open, working on whatever mysterious business occupied a crime lord's attention. It was domestic, normal. Exactly the kind of evening Emma had imagined having someday with someone she loved. The thought stopped her cold. Love. Was that what this was? Could you love someone after only a handful of days, someone who'd admitted to murder and criminal enterprise and stalking you for months? Emma glanced at Dmitri. He was frowning at his screen, fingers flying across the keyboard, looking more like a businessman than a crime lord. As if feeling her gaze, he looked up and smiled, that soft, genuine smile he seemed to reserve only for her. What? He asked. Nothing, just, this is nice. It is. He closed the laptop and pulled her against his side. I could get used to this. Me too, Emma admitted. That's what scares me. Why? Because in 2 days I go home, back to my real life. And this, she gestured at the house, the fire, the easy intimacy between them. This doesn't exist there. Then we'll build it. Not here, not in your apartment, but somewhere in between. We'll find a way to make this work in the real world, Emma, if you want to. Do you think we can? I think we can do anything if we want it badly enough. Emma wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that a nurse's aide and a crime lord could somehow make a relationship work despite everything stacked against them. But she'd learned the hard way that wanting something didn't make it real. Still, for tonight, she let herself hope. They made love again that night, and the next morning, and one more time before Emma finally, reluctantly, said she had to go home. Dmitri drove her himself this time, and the contrast between his pristine luxury car and her shabby apartment building had never felt more stark. "I'll call you later," he said as she gathered her things. "Okay." "Emma," he caught her hand. "These 2 days with you were the best I've had in longer than I can remember. Thank you. Thank you for letting me stay. Anytime. Every time. Always." Emma kissed him once more, then forced herself to get out of the car and walk away. She made it all the way to her apartment before the tears started. Not sad tears. Not exactly. More like tears of overwhelm, of fear, of standing at a crossroads and knowing that whichever path she chose, nothing would ever be the same. Her phone buzzed before she could collapse onto her mattress. But it wasn't Dmitri. It was a number she didn't recognize. Unknown. "Miss Morrison, we need to talk about Dmitri Antonov. Your life may depend on it. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th and Main at 2 p.m. today. Come alone." Detective Sarah Chen. Emma stared at the text, her blood running cold. The fantasy was over. Reality had just kicked down the door. Emma sat in the coffee shop on 5th and Main, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched, watching the door. It was 1:58 p.m. The text had said 2 o'clock. She'd arrived early because waiting in her apartment had felt like suffocating. She hadn't told Dmitri about the message, hadn't told anyone. The detective had said, "Come alone," and some instinct Emma couldn't name told her to listen. At exactly 2 o'clock, a woman walked through the door. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a leather jacket that didn't quite hide the badge clipped to her belt. Her eyes scanned the room with professional efficiency before landing on Emma. Detective Sarah Chen didn't smile as she approached. She simply slid into the booth across from Emma and set a manila folder on the table between them. "Thank you for coming," Chen said. "I wasn't sure you would. You said my life depended on it. That's not really something you ignore." "Smart." Chen flagged down a waitress, ordered black coffee, then turned her full attention to Emma. "How long have you known Dmitri Antonov?" "Why does that matter?" "Because I need to know how deep you are before I show you what's in this folder." Emma's stomach twisted. "A week. Maybe less." "And in that week, what has he told you about himself?" "That he runs import-export businesses. That he owns restaurants. That his father died 10 years ago." "What else?" Emma hesitated. "That he's not a good man." Chen's expression shifted slightly. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. "He admitted that?" "He told me he was a crime lord. That he runs an organization his father built. That he's done things, hurt people, killed people to maintain power." "And you're still seeing him?" It wasn't a question, but Emma answered anyway. "Yes." "Why?" "Because when he looks at me, I don't feel invisible anymore. Because he makes me feel like I matter. Because—" Emma's voice cracked slightly. "Because I'm tired of being alone." Chen's coffee arrived. She took a long sip, studying Emma over the rim of her cup. "I've been investigating Dmitri Antonov for 3 years," Chen said finally. "He's careful, meticulous. Every business he runs is technically legitimate on paper. But underneath, there's a network that controls half the organized crime in this city. Drugs, weapons, money laundering, extortion. If it's illegal and profitable, his organization touches it." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because 2 weeks ago we got intelligence that he'd become interested in someone. A civilian with no connection to his world. We thought maybe it was a vulnerability we could exploit." Chen opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. "That civilian was you." The photo showed Emma leaving the hospital after a night shift. The date stamp read 3 months ago. "We've been watching him watch you," Chen continued, Every visit to your mother's grave, every double shift at the hospital, every moment he spent learning your patterns. And then a week ago, your car broke down. You knew about that? We had surveillance on him. We saw him approach you, saw you get in his car. Chen pulled out another photo. Emma and Dmitri at the restaurant, visible through the windows of the private dining room. We saw him take you to dinner. And then another photo. This one showing Emma entering Dmitri's house. We saw you disappear into his home for 2 days. Emma felt violated, exposed. You've been following me? We've been following him. You just happened to be in the frame. Chen leaned forward. Miss Morrison, Emma, I'm telling you this not to scare you, though you should be scared. I'm telling you this because Dmitry Antonov is one of the most dangerous men in this city, and you're getting close to him at exactly the wrong time. What does that mean? Chen pulled out more photos. These showed different men, hard faces, cold eyes, the kind of people who looked like violence was their first language. There's a power struggle happening right now. A rival organization led by a man named Viktor Kozlov is trying to move into Antonov's territory. There have been 3 deaths in the last month. Businesses burned, shipments hijacked. It's getting ugly, and it's about to get uglier. Chen tapped one of the photos. And now Antonov has given them the perfect leverage. Me. You. A civilian girlfriend with no protection, no training, no idea what she's stepped into. If Kozlov finds out about you, and he will, because people talk and secrets don't stay secret in this world, he'll use you to get to Antonov. Emma's mouth had gone dry. What do you want from me? I want you to help us bring him down. The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma stared at Detective Chen, trying to process what she was hearing. You want me to betray him. I want you to help us stop a criminal organization that's responsible for countless deaths and ruined lives. I want you to be on the right side of this before you get hurt or killed or so tangled up in his world that there's no way out. And how exactly would I do that? Chen pulled out a small device, no bigger than a button. You wear a wire. You record conversations. You tell us when he's meeting with associates, when shipments are coming in, where money changes hands. You give us the evidence we need to build a case that'll actually stick. You want me to spy on him? I want you to survive this. Because right now, Emma, you're a liability to him and a target for his enemies. The only way you stay safe is if Antonov is behind bars where he can't drag you deeper into this mess. Emma thought about Dmitri's hands in her hair, his voice in the dark, the way he'd held her while she slept, the way he'd looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. No, she said. Chen blinked. No? I'm not wearing a wire. I'm not spying on him. I'm not helping you build a case. Miss Morrison, he told me the truth about what he is, what he does. He gave me the choice to walk away, and I chose to stay. I'm not going to repay that honesty by betraying him to the police. Even if it means your life is in danger? Even then, Chen sat back, frustration clear on her face. You're making a mistake. Probably, but it's my mistake to make. What about when Kozlov's men grab you off the street? What about when they use you to force Antonov into a position where he has to choose between his empire and your life? You think he's going to choose you? Emma stood, her legs unsteady but her voice firm. I think that's between me and him. Thank you for the warning, detective, but I'm not interested in your deal. Emma, if you'll excuse me, I have a shift at the hospital in 2 hours. Emma walked out of the coffee shop with her heart hammering and her hands shaking. She made it half a block before she had to stop, lean against a building, and try to remember how to breathe. What had she just done? Refused police protection? Turned down a chance to escape this before it got worse? Chosen a crime lord over the law? Her phone buzzed. Dmitri. How was your first day back? Missing my cooking yet? Emma stared at the text. She should tell him about Detective Chen, about the surveillance photos, about the rival organization and the power struggle and the target painted on her back. Emma. Your cooking is terrible and you know it, but yes, I'm missing it anyway. Dmitri. Dinner tonight? I promise to only burn half the food. Emma. I have a shift until 11. Dmitri. Then midnight snacks. I'll pick you up. Emma should have said no. Should have created distance while she figured out what to do with the information Chen had dumped in her lap. Emma. Okay, see you then. She pocketed her phone and headed toward the bus stop, trying to ignore the feeling that she was being watched, trying to ignore the voice in her head that sounded a lot like her mother, asking what the hell she thought she was doing. The shift at the hospital was endless. Every patient seemed more demanding than usual. Every task took twice as long as it should, and Emma couldn't stop replaying Detective Chen's words in her head. You're a liability to him, and a target for his enemies. By the time 11 o'clock rolled around, Emma was exhausted and rattled and desperately wanting to see Dmitri just to prove to herself that this was real, that he was real, that she hadn't imagined the connection between them. She changed out of her scrubs in the employee locker room and checked her phone. No new messages from Dmitri, but it was only 11:05. He'd said midnight. She had time. Emma headed out through the emergency room exit, the same route she always took, and pushed through the doors into the parking lot. A hand grabbed her arm. Emma yelped and spun, heart racing, prepared to fight or run or scream. The man holding her arm was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. He smiled, showing teeth that were too white, too perfect. Emma Morrison, he said in accented English, Russian, like Dimitri's, but harder somehow. We need to talk. Let go of me. Emma tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. I don't think so. You're coming with me. Like hell I am. A second man appeared from behind a van, moving with predatory silence. Emma opened her mouth to scream, but the first man's hand clamped over her face. No noise. You make noise, people get hurt. You understand? Emma nodded, terror flooding her system. Good. Now walk, nice and calm. Just three friends heading to a car. They marched her across the parking lot to a black sedan with tinted windows. The second man opened the back door while the first one shoved Emma inside. She stumbled, caught herself against the far door, and immediately tried to open it. Locked. Both men slid into the front seats. The engine started. The car began to move. Who are you? Emma demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. What do you want? The scarred man glanced at her in the rearview mirror. I'm Alexei. This is Pavel, and what we want is to send a message to Dmitri Antonov. I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't insult us by pretending. We've been watching you. We know you've been staying at his house, sleeping in his bed, playing house like you're something special. Alexei's smile was cruel. You're not special, little girl. You're a tool, and we're going to use you. Emma's mind raced. Detective Chen's warnings echoed in her head. She'd said this would happen. She'd said Kozlov's people would come for her. Dmitri will kill you for this, Emma said, surprised by how calm she sounded. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how much you're worth to him. Alexei turned onto a side street, then another, moving away from the hospital, away from anything familiar. Viktor wants to meet you, wants to see what's so special about Antonov's new pet. I'm not his pet. No? Then what are you? His girlfriend, his lover. You think you're the first woman he's taken to bed? You think you matter to him beyond the convenience of having someone warm and willing? You don't know anything about us. I know that men like Dmitri Antonov don't fall in love, sweetheart. They collect, they possess, they use, and when they're done, they discard. Alexei's eyes met hers in the mirror. Question is, are you already used up, or does he still want you enough to negotiate? The car stopped in front of a warehouse in the industrial district. Pavel got out first, opened Emma's door, and hauled her out with one hand on her upper arm. His grip would leave bruises. Inside, the warehouse was mostly empty, just concrete floors, metal beams, and a few plastic chairs arranged in the center under a hanging work light. A man sat in one of the chairs, smoking a cigarette and watching the door like he'd been waiting. Viktor Kozlov was older than Dmitri, maybe 50, with gray threading through his dark hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of violence and survival in equal measure. He stood as Emma was dragged forward, his gaze traveling over her with clinical assessment. So this is what has Antonov distracted, Viktor said. His English was perfect, barely accented. I expected someone more impressive. Sorry to disappoint, Emma snapped before she could stop herself. Viktor laughed. Spirit, I like that.
Pavel, get her a chair. I'd rather stand. Sit down, Miss Morrison. This won't take long. Pavel shoved Emma into a chair. She stumbled but caught herself, refusing to show fear even though her heart was trying to hammer out of her chest. Victor circled her slowly, still smoking his cigarette. Do you know who I am? A man who's about to make a very big mistake. Bold words for someone in your position, but no, I don't think this is a mistake. I think this is exactly what needs to happen. Victor stopped in front of her. Dmitry Antonov has been a thorn in my side for 2 years. Every territory I try to claim, he blocks me. Every deal I try to make, he undercuts me. He treats this city like his personal kingdom and everyone in it like subjects. And you're any different? I'm pragmatic. I'm willing to share. Dmitry, though, he wants everything.
Every dollar, every corner, every piece of power. Victor took a long drag on his cigarette. So I'm going to take something from him, something he wants, and then we'll see how untouchable he really is. He'll come for you, you know that, right? The second he finds out you took me, he'll burn your entire organization to the ground. Let him try. I have 24 men between here and the nearest exit. I have weapons, resources, and the element of surprise. By the time Dmitry figures out where you are, I'll have already made my point. Which is what? Victor smiled. That he's not as invincible as he thinks. That he can be hurt. That he can lose. Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. Victor's eyes dropped to the sound. Give me that. No. Alexei stepped forward and wrenched the phone from Emma's pocket before she could stop him. He handed it to Victor, who looked at the screen and smiled. Dmitry, Victor read. Where are you? I'm at the hospital and you're not here. Call me. He looked at Emma. He's worried about you. How sweet. Don't. Victor started typing. What are you doing? Sending him an invitation to join us. Victor held up the phone so Emma could see the message. Change of plans. Meet me at the old Harrison warehouse on Dock Street. Come alone. E. He'll know I didn't send that. Will he? You've known him for a week, sweetheart. You think you can predict how he thinks? Victor hit send. We'll see. Emma's mind raced, trying to calculate odds, trying to think of a way out. But she was one exhausted nurse's aide surrounded by armed criminals in a warehouse in the middle of nowhere. Her options were limited to none. 20 minutes passed in tense silence. Victor smoked 2 more cigarettes. Alexei and Pavel stood by the door, weapons visible now, guns tucked into shoulder holsters that they made no effort to hide. Emma sat in her chair and tried not to think about all the ways this could end badly. Then Pavel's radio crackled. Boss, we got movement outside. Single vehicle approaching. Victor stubbed out his cigarette. Positions. Nobody shoots unless I give the order. 6 more men emerged from the shadows of the warehouse. Emma hadn't even known they were there. They spread out, creating a perimeter around the center where Emma sat. The warehouse door opened. Dmitry walked in alone. He was dressed in all black, his face a mask of cold fury that Emma had never seen before. His eyes swept the warehouse, counted the men, assessed the situation with the kind of tactical precision that reminded Emma he'd been doing this his entire adult life. When his gaze landed on Emma, something flickered in his expression. Relief, rage, fear. It was gone in an instant, replaced by that icy control. Victor, Dmitry said, his voice flat. This is beneath even you. Is it? I thought it was rather inspired. Victor gestured to Emma. Your girlfriend is unharmed, for now. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on you. Let her go. In exchange for what? Whatever you want. Territory, money, access to my shipping routes. Name your price and let her walk out of here. Victor laughed. You'd give up your empire for a girl you've known a week. I'd burn this entire city to the ground if it meant she stays safe. Dmitry took a step forward. 2 guns immediately trained on him. He stopped. Name. Your price. There is no price, Dmitry. That's what you don't understand. This isn't about business. This is about making you feel what it's like to lose, to be powerless, to watch something you want be taken from you. Emma saw it then, the shift in Dmitry's posture, the way his hand moved almost imperceptibly toward his coat, the deadly calm that settled over his features like a shroud. If you hurt her, Dmitry said softly, there is no place on this earth you'll be able to hide. I will hunt you. I will find you, and I will make you beg for a death I won't give you. Big threats from a man surrounded by my guns. Do you really think I came alone? Victor's confidence faltered for just a second. You sent that text from her phone saying to come alone. And you believed it. Dmitri smiled, cold and terrible. Rookie mistake, Victor. The windows shattered. Everything happened at once. Glass rained down as men in tactical gear rappelled through the broken windows. Gunfire erupted. Victor's men scattered, trying to find cover. Emma threw herself to the ground, covering her head with her arms. Someone grabbed her, Pavel, and hauled her up, using her as a human shield. Emma felt the barrel of a gun press against her temple. "Everyone stop!" Pavel shouted. "Everyone stops or the girl dies!" The gunfire ceased. In the sudden silence, Emma could hear her own ragged breathing, could feel Pavel's arm like a vice around her throat. Dmitri stood 15 feet away, his own gun now visible, pointed directly at Pavel's head. Around him, a dozen men in black tactical gear had Victor's remaining forces surrounded and disarmed. "Let her go," Dmitri said. His voice was eerily calm. "Let her go and you get to walk out of here. You think I'm stupid? The second I let her go, I'm dead. No, the second you pull that trigger, you're dead. Right now, you still have a choice." Emma could feel Pavel shaking, could smell his sweat and fear, could hear the desperation in his voice when he spoke again. "Victor, what do I do?" Victor had his hands raised, 3 guns pointed at him. He looked at Pavel, at Emma, at the situation falling apart around him. "Let her go," Victor said. "It's over." "Boss, let her go, Pavel. He's won." For a long moment, Pavel didn't move. Emma could feel his finger on the trigger, could imagine the bullet entering her skull, could see her life ending in this dirty warehouse over a man she'd known for barely more than a week. Then Pavel shoved her forward. Emma stumbled. Dmitri was there in an instant, catching her, pulling her against his chest. She felt his heart hammering, felt his arms like steel bands around her, felt safe for the first time since Alexei had grabbed her in the parking lot. "I've got you," Dmitri murmured into her hair. "I've got you, love. You're safe." Emma couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but hold on to him and try not to fall apart. Behind them, Victor and his men were being zip-tied and forced to their knees. Dmitri's second-in-command, a man Emma recognized as Marcus from the night he'd driven her to Dmitri's house, approached with Pavel in custody. "What do you want us to do with them?" Marcus asked. Dmitri's arms tightened around Emma. When he spoke, his voice was cold enough to freeze blood. "Take them to the pier. I'll deal with them later." "Dmitri, wait," Victor started. "You pointed a gun at her head." Dmitri turned and Emma could see the murder in his eyes. "You kidnapped her, threatened her, used her to get to me. There is no universe where you walk away from this, Victor. The only question is how long it takes you to die. Please, Marcus, get them out of my sight before I shoot them right here." Marcus nodded and gestured to his men. They dragged Victor and the others toward the back of the warehouse. Victor was shouting something, pleas, threats, bargains, but Emma couldn't focus on the words. Dmitri cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "Did they touch you, hurt you, do anything?" "I'm okay. Scared, but okay." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Emma. This is my fault. I should have protected you better, should have seen this coming. Dmitri." Emma put her hands over his. "You came. You saved me. That's what matters. I almost lost you, but you didn't." He kissed her then, desperate and fierce, and full of all the fear he'd been holding back. Emma kissed him back, needing to feel alive, needing to prove to herself that this was real, and she was safe, and he was here. When they finally broke apart, Dmitri kept her close, one arm around her waist like he couldn't bear to let her go. "We need to leave," he said. "There'll be police here soon. My men will clean up, but you and I need to be somewhere else." "Where?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't find you." Emma thought about Detective Chen's warning, about the wire and the deal and the choice she'd made in the coffee shop to stay with Dmitri instead of turning him in. "Dmitri, there's something I need to tell you. Later. Right now, I just need to get you out of here." He led her to a car waiting outside.
Not his usual sedan, but an armored SUV with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he'd walked out of an action movie. Dmitri helped Emma into the back seat and slid in beside her, immediately pulling her against his side. "Drive," he told the driver. "Route 3. Make sure we're not followed." The SUV pulled away from the warehouse. Emma watched through the rear window as the building disappeared into the distance, taking with it the last hour of terror and violence, and the moment she'd thought she might die. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now I make sure this never happens again." Dmitri's jaw was tight. Victor and his organization are finished. By morning, there won't be anyone left who'd dare come after you. "You're going to kill them." "Yes." Emma should have been horrified, should have begged him to show mercy, to turn them over to the police, to do anything except what he was planning. Instead, she just nodded. Because the truth was, sitting in that warehouse with a gun to her head, she hadn't been thinking about mercy or justice or the right thing to do. She'd been thinking about Dmitri, about wanting to see him again, about wanting to live. And now, safe in his arms while his men cleaned up the mess and his enemies faced whatever brutal fate he'd planned, she couldn't bring herself to feel sorry for them. They drove for over an hour, taking a winding route through the city and out into the countryside. Finally, they pulled up to a house Emma had never seen, smaller than Dmitri's main residence, tucked into the woods with no neighbors for miles. "Safe house," Dmitri explained as he helped her out. "Only a handful of people know about it. You'll stay here until this is handled." "How long will that be?" "A few days, maybe a week." "I have work. I've already called the hospital, told them you had a family emergency and would be out for 2 weeks." Dmitri unlocked the front door and ushered her inside. "Your job will be waiting when you get back." I made sure of it. The house was furnished but impersonal, the kind of place meant for hiding, not living. Dmitri locked the door behind them, engaged the alarm system, then turned to Emma. "You're shaking," he said. Emma looked down at her hands. He was right. She was trembling, adrenaline crash finally hitting now that the immediate danger had passed. "Come here." Dmitri pulled her into his arms and just held her. No words, no promises, just solid, steady presence. Emma broke. All the fear she'd been holding back, all the terror of the gun against her head, and the certainty she was going to die came pouring out in ragged sobs. She clung to Dmitri and cried until she couldn't breathe, until her throat was raw and her eyes burned. Through it all, Dmitri held her. Murmured words in Russian she didn't understand but somehow found comforting. Stroked her hair and let her soak his shirt with tears and didn't once tell her to stop or pull herself together. When the storm finally passed, Emma pulled back, wiping at her face with shaking hands. "Sorry," she managed. "Don't apologize. Not for this. Not ever." Dmitri brushed her hair back from her face. "What you went through tonight, what they did to you, you're allowed to fall apart. I thought I was going to die. I know. And all I could think about was that I'd never get to see you again. Never get to tell you." Emma stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Tell me what?" Emma looked up at him. At this dangerous man who'd stormed a warehouse with a small army to save her. Who'd been willing to trade his empire for her life. Who was looking at her right now like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "That I'm falling for you," she whispered. "I know it's too soon. I know it's insane. But I am, Dmitri. I'm falling for you, and it terrifies me." Dmitri's expression cracked open, showing something raw and vulnerable beneath the controlled exterior. "Emma, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know, in case something happens, and I don't get another chance. Nothing is going to happen to you. I swear it. I will burn this entire world down before I let anyone hurt you again. That's not healthy, you know. The burning down the world thing. I don't care about healthy. I care about you." Dmitri cupped her face in his hands. "I've spent 10 years building walls around myself, around my heart, telling myself I couldn't afford to care about anyone because caring meant weakness. But then I saw you in the rain, giving away your jacket, and something cracked. And every moment since then, every second I've spent learning you, knowing you, being near you, those cracks have gotten bigger until the wall is gone, and there's just you. Just this feeling I can't name and don't know how to handle but can't live without." "Dmitri, I'm falling too, Emma. Have been since that first night. Maybe before." He kissed her forehead. "And if that makes me weak,
If that makes me vulnerable, I don't care. You're worth it. Emma kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. Dmitri responded with equal intensity, backing her toward the bedroom, hands already working at her clothes. They made love with desperation and relief tangled together. Emma needed to feel alive, needed to erase the memory of fear with the reality of Dmitri's body against hers. And afterward, lying in his arms in a safe house in the middle of nowhere, she finally felt like she could breathe again. "There's something I need to tell you," Emma said quietly. "Something that happened earlier today." "What?" "A detective contacted me. Sarah Chen. She showed me surveillance photos of us, of you. She told me about Victor and the power struggle and the danger I was in." Dmitri went very still. "When was this?" "This afternoon. She wanted me to wear a wire to help her build a case against you." "And?" "And I told her no." Emma traced patterns on his chest. "She wasn't wrong, though, about the danger, about what being with you means. Do you want to leave, now that you've seen what this life looks like?" Emma thought about it, really thought about it. About the gun to her head and the warehouse and the violence and the fear. About the fact that this was only the beginning, that there would be more threats, more danger, more moments where she might not make it out alive. "No," she said. "I don't want to leave. I want to stay. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. If there's danger, if someone's coming after you or me or us, I need to know. I need to be able to make informed choices about the risks I'm taking. I can do that. And I need you to teach me how to protect myself. I won't be helpless again. If I'm going to be in your world, I need to know how to survive in it." Dmitri was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll teach you, starting tomorrow. Self-defense, weapons training, situational awareness, everything you need to never feel helpless again." "Thank you." "Emma?" "Yeah?" "What we have, this thing between us, it's real for me. It's not about possession or control or having something beautiful to look at. It's about you, the person you are, the way you make me feel human again." Emma's throat tightened. "It's real for me, too." They fell asleep, tangled together, safe for the moment in a house no one else knew about. And when Emma woke in the middle of the night to find Dmitri sitting by the window with a gun in his lap, watching the darkness for threats, she didn't feel afraid. She felt protected. She felt chosen. And despite everything, the violence, the danger, the impossible odds stacked against them, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. Even if it meant learning to live in the shadows, even if it meant becoming someone she'd never imagined being, because the alternative was going back to her life before Dmitri, back to being invisible, back to being alone. And Emma had learned something important in that warehouse tonight. She'd rather face danger with Dmitri than safety without him, even if that made her reckless, even if that made her foolish, even if that made her someone she barely recognized anymore. She was his, and he was hers, and everything else would just have to burn. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was, forgot the warehouse, the gun, the terror. Then memory crashed back and she sat up, heart racing. "Easy." Dmitri appeared in the doorway carrying 2 mugs. "You're safe. We're at the safe house, remember?" Emma nodded, accepting the coffee he offered. Her hands were steadier than they'd been last night, but the memory of Pavel's gun against her temples still made her stomach clench. "What time is it?" "Almost noon. I let you sleep. You needed it." Dmitri sat on the edge of the bed. He was already dressed, wearing dark jeans and a black t-shirt that showed off the lean muscle of his arms. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck. Emotionally, anyway." Emma sipped her coffee. "What happened last night? After we left?" Dmitri's expression went carefully neutral. "Victor and his men have been dealt with." "Dealt with how?" "Do you really want the details?" Emma thought about it, about Victor's cruel smile and Alexei's grip on her arm and Pavel's finger on the trigger, about the fact that she was alive because Dmitri had been willing to do whatever it took to get her back. "No," she said finally. "I don't need the details, but I need to know it's over, that they can't come back. It's over. Victor's organization is finished. The few who survived are running scared or swearing loyalty to me. No one is coming after you again. How can you be sure? Because I made an example, Emma. A very clear, very public example of what happens when someone touches what's mine. Dimitri's eyes were dark. Everyone in this city knows now that you're under my protection. That hurting you means death, not quick, not merciful, just death. Emma should have been disturbed by the casual way he talked about violence, should have recoiled from the possessiveness in his voice. But all she felt was a strange sense of relief. Good, she said. Dimitri raised an eyebrow. Good? I know that probably makes me a terrible person, but yes, good. They kidnapped me. They threatened to kill me. I'm not going to apologize for being glad they can't hurt anyone else. You're not a terrible person, love. You're someone who survived something traumatic and is trying to process it. That's allowed? Emma set down her coffee. You said you'd teach me how to protect myself. Can we start today? Are you sure you're ready? I'm sure I never want to feel that helpless again. So yes, I'm ready. Dimitri studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Finish your coffee. Get dressed. We'll start with basics. An hour later, Emma stood in the safe house's basement, a space that had apparently been converted into a small gym and firing range, wearing workout clothes Dimitri had somehow procured in her exact size. Rule number 1, Dimitri said, circling her slowly. Awareness. Most attacks succeed because the victim doesn't see them coming. So we're going to teach your body to always be scanning, always assessing threat levels, always looking for exits. Like you do. Like I do. It becomes second nature after a while. You'll walk into a room and automatically note who's there, where the doors are, what could be used as a weapon. That sounds exhausting. It's survival. Dimitri stopped in front of her. Now someone grabs you from behind. What do? Before Emma could answer, his arms locked around her from behind, pinning her arms to her sides. Emma's breath caught, not from fear, but from the visceral memory of Pavel holding her the same way. Don't freeze, Dimitri said quietly against her ear. Breathe, think. What are your options? Emma forced herself to focus. I could stomp on your foot. Good. What else? Throw my head back. Try to hit your nose. Excellent. What else? Emma thought. His grip was tight, but his legs were within reach. Kick backward. Aim for your knee or shin. Perfect. Now do it. Don't hold back. I can take it. Emma hesitated only a second before stomping down hard on Dimitri's foot, throwing her head back and kicking her leg up and back in rapid succession. His grip loosened and she twisted free, stumbling away and turning to face him. Dimitri was grinning. Fast learner. Again. They drilled for 2 hours. Dimitri taught her how to break holds, how to use her smaller size and lower center of gravity as advantages, how to go for vulnerable points, eyes, throat, groin, knees. He was patient but demanding, making her repeat movements until they felt almost natural. You're stronger than you think, he said as they took a water break. Most women are. Society teaches you to be small and non-threatening, but your body is capable of incredible things when you let it. I don't feel strong. You survived last night. You're standing here training instead of falling apart. That's strength, Emma. After a brief rest, Dimitri led her to the firing range. I don't know if I can shoot someone, Emma said, staring at the gun he'd set on the counter between them. You don't have to shoot anyone, but you should know how, just in case. Dimitri picked up the weapon, a compact pistol that looked almost delicate in his hands. This is a Glock 43, 9mm, light, easy to handle, reliable. We're going to teach you to use it safely and effectively. He walked her through the basics, how to check if it was loaded, how to hold it properly, how to aim, how to control the recoil. Emma's hands shook the first time she pulled the trigger, the sound deafening even with ear protection. But by the 10th shot, she was hitting the target center mass. Natural talent, Dimitri observed, or maybe just good motivation. I'm motivated by not dying, Emma said dryly. They spent the rest of the afternoon training. By the time Dimitri called it quits, Emma was exhausted, sore, and surprisingly empowered. She'd faced her fear, taken control, started building skills that might save her life someday. That night, they cooked dinner together in the safe house kitchen. Emma showed Dimitri how to properly season chicken, and he managed to not burn anything, which felt like a victory. "How long do we stay here?" Emma asked over dinner. "Another few days, until I'm absolutely certain the threat is neutralized and my people have secured all of Victor's former territory." "And then?" "Then you have a choice to make." Emma set down her fork. "What kind of choice?" Dmitri was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "This week has shown you what my life looks like. The danger, the violence, the fact that people I'm at war with will use you to get to me. Most women would run from that. Most should run from that. But you're not most women, and I'm selfish enough to hope you'll stay anyway." He reached across the table and took her hand. "If you stay, Emma, I can't promise it'll be safe. I can't promise there won't be more nights like last night, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to protect you, to keep you safe, to make sure you never regret choosing me. And if I go," pain flashed across Dimitri's features, "then I'll make sure you're protected from a distance, set you up somewhere safe, make sure your debt is paid and you never have to worry about money again. You'd be free to live whatever life you want, and I'd just be a strange chapter you'd eventually forget." "You think I could forget you?" "I think you could try, and eventually you'd succeed. You'd meet someone normal, someone safe, someone who could give you the life you deserve instead of pulling you into darkness." Emma stood, walked around the table, and sat in Dimitri's lap. His arms came around her automatically, holding her close. "I don't want normal," she said. I don't want safe. I want you. All of you. The restaurants and the safe houses and the violence you commit to keep me breathing. I want the man who stormed a warehouse with an army because someone dared to touch me. I want the man who can't cook but tries anyway. I want the man who looks at me like I'm the answer to every question he's ever asked. Emma, I'm not done. I know this is crazy. I know I should run, but I've spent my whole life being careful and following rules and doing what I was supposed to do. And where did it get me? Alone. Drowning in debt. Working myself to death for scraps. Emma cupped his face in her hands. You make me feel alive, Dmitri. You make me feel seen and wanted, and like I matter. And I'm not giving that up just because it's dangerous. Dmitri kissed her, deep and desperate and full of relief. You're sure? I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure. Then we do this right. No more hiding you away like a secret. No more pretending you're not part of my world. Dimitri's eyes were intense. You move in with me, properly. You learn everything you need to know to survive in this life. And anyone who even thinks about using you against me learns exactly what happens when they make that mistake. Move in with you? Dmitri, we've known each other for a week, 11 days, and I don't care. I want you in my home, in my bed, in my life, completely and without reservation. Emma knew she should ask for time, should insist on taking things slower, should maintain some kind of independence and sense of self. Okay, she said instead. Okay? Okay, I'll move in, on one condition. Name it. I keep working, maybe not at the hospital, I know that's not safe anymore, but I need to do something. I can't just be the crime lord's girlfriend who sits around looking pretty. What do you want to do? Emma thought about it, about the skills she had, and the life she'd been living, and what might actually make her happy. I want to help people. That's why I became a nurse's aide in the first place. Maybe I could work at one of those free clinics? The ones that serve people who can't afford regular health care? Dmitri smiled. I own 2 free clinics. You could run one if you wanted. You own free clinics? Not everything I do is illegal, love. Some of it's actually helpful. He kissed her nose. I'll set up a meeting with the current managers. You can tell them what you want to do, and they'll make it happen. Just like that? Just like that. Welcome to dating someone with unlimited resources and questionable ethics. Emma laughed despite herself. This is insane. Completely. But it's ours. They stayed at the safe house for 3 more days. During the day, Dmitri continued training Emma. More self-defense, more firearms practice, lessons in reading people and situations and threat assessment. During the evenings, they cooked and talked and made love like the world outside didn't exist. Emma learned things about Dmitri she'd never have guessed. That he'd wanted to be an architect as a teenager. That he played piano, though he claimed to be rusty. That he'd been engaged once, years ago, to a woman from another crime family who'd been killed in a car bomb meant for him. Her name was Irina, Dmitri said one night, staring into the fireplace. We were 25. The engagement was arranged. Our families wanted to unite territories, but we'd grown up together. She was my friend before anything else. What happened? She died. My father's enemies planted a bomb in her car. They knew she'd drive to meet me. They knew I'd be there when it detonated. Dimitri's voice was hollow. I was 30 seconds late. Stopped to take a phone call. Those 30 seconds saved my life and cost her hers. Emma's throat tightened. I'm sorry. It was 10 years ago. But it taught me something important. Everyone I care about becomes a target. Everyone close to me is at risk just by proximity. That's why I've kept people at arm's length since then. No relationships, no attachments, nothing that could be used against me. Until me. Until you. Dmitri turned to look at her. And I won't lie and say I'm not terrified of history repeating. That some enemy won't find a way to hurt you despite all my precautions. But I'm more terrified of losing you because I was too afraid to try. Then we'll be terrified together, Emma said, and we'll be careful, and we'll survive. On the fourth morning, Dimitri's phone rang. He stepped outside to take the call, and when he came back, his expression was carefully controlled. It's time, he said. Everything's secure. We can go home. Home. The words settled over Emma with surprising weight. Not her studio apartment with the mattress on the floor, not the hospital where she'd worked herself to exhaustion, but Dimitri's house. Their house now, apparently. They drove back to the city in comfortable silence. Emma watched the landscape change from rural to suburban to urban, watched the world she'd stepped away from come back into focus. Dimitri's house looked the same as she remembered, modern, beautiful, perched on the hillside with the city spread below. But walking through the door felt different this time. This wasn't a visit. This was coming home. I had some of your things moved from your apartment, Dmitri said. Not much. Honestly, there wasn't much to move. But your clothes, your books, the photos of your mother, they're in our bedroom now. Our bedroom. Emma's heart skipped at the casual possessiveness of it. You went through my apartment? I sent people. They were very respectful. Dmitri set down their bags. I also paid off your lease through the end of the year and covered any damages. Your landlord won't have any complaints. You didn't have to do that. I wanted you to have an exit if you needed one. If this doesn't work, if you decide you want to leave, you'll have a place to go back to. No strings. No conditions. Emma walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the view. She could see the hospital from here, a squat building in the distance where she'd spent so many exhausting hours. Could see the whole city, actually, spread out like a circuit board of lights and life. I have something to tell you, she said quietly. Dmitri came to stand beside her. What? I'm late. Late for what? My period. I'm 5 days late. I'm never late. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. Emma kept her eyes on the view, afraid to look at Dimitri's face, afraid to see regret or fear or anything except the acceptance she desperately needed. How late are you usually? Dmitri asked finally, his voice carefully neutral. I'm not. I've been regular since I was 15, 28 days like clockwork. Emma's hands trembled slightly. We weren't exactly careful that first night, or the morning after, or any of the times since. No, we weren't. Dmitri turned her to face him. Look at me, Emma. She did. His expression was intense but unreadable. Are you scared? He asked. Terrified. Of what? That you'll feel trapped. That this will change everything between us. That I'll be tied to you, not because I want to be, but because I have to be. Do you want to take a test? Emma nodded. Okay, I'll send someone to get one. Dmitri pulled out his phone. Now? You want to do this now? No point in waiting and worrying. Better to know. He typed quickly, then pocketed the phone. Marcus will be here in 20 minutes with several different tests. We'll take them all, just to be certain. And if I'm pregnant? Dmitri cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs stroking her cheekbones. Then we figure it out, together. But Emma, I need you to understand something. If you're carrying my child, I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever. You could tell me to leave and I'd still be here, making sure you and our baby had everything you needed. Even though we barely know each other, I know everything that matters. I know you're strong and kind and braver than you give yourself credit for. I know you make me want to be someone better. I know that the idea of you carrying my child doesn't scare me nearly as much as the idea of you not being in my life. Emma's eyes stung with tears. What if I can't do this? What if I'm a terrible mother? What if I mess this kid up? Then we'll mess them up together and we'll love them anyway. Dimitri kissed her forehead. But for what it's worth, I think you'll be an incredible mother. You've spent your whole life taking care of people. This would just be taking care of someone who's actually yours. Marcus arrived 18 minutes later with a pharmacy bag containing what looked like every pregnancy test on the market. He handed it to Dimitri without comment, though Emma caught the slight smile on his face before he left. Emma locked herself in the bathroom with the tests and Dimitri's reassurance that whatever the result, they'd handle it together. She peed on 4 different sticks, set timers on her phone, and waited. The 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. When the first timer went off, Emma's hands were shaking so badly she could barely pick up the test. She turned it over. 2 lines. Pregnant. She checked the second test. The same. The third. The fourth. All positive. All screaming the same impossible truth. Emma was pregnant with Dmitri Antonov's baby. She opened the bathroom door. Dmitri was sitting on the bed, elbows on his knees, looking like he was waiting for a verdict. He stood when he saw her face. Emma? She held up the tests wordlessly. Dmitri crossed to her in 2 strides, took the tests from her hands, and stared at them like they held the secrets of the universe. When he looked up, his eyes were bright with something Emma couldn't quite name. You're pregnant, he said. I'm pregnant. With my baby. Yes. Dmitri set down the tests and pulled Emma into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. She felt his chest heaving, felt the tremor in his hands, felt the way he pressed his face into her hair like he was trying to memorize the moment. Dmitri? Are you okay? I never thought... His voice broke. After Irina died, I told myself I'd never have this. Never have a family. Never bring a child into this world and risk losing them the way I lost her. But Emma, the thought of you carrying my baby, of creating a life with you... He pulled back just enough to cup her face, and Emma saw tears on his cheeks. I want this, he said fiercely. I want you and this baby and whatever life we can build together. But Emma, you have to be sure. You have to know what you're signing up for, because if you have this child, you're tied to me forever, to my world, to the danger and the violence and everything that comes with being mine. What if I don't want this? Emma asked quietly. What if I want to? Then I'll support you. Whatever you decide. No judgment, no pressure. Your body, your choice, always. Emma pulled away and walked to the window again. Sunset was painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and somewhere in the city below, life was continuing as normal. People were going to work, coming home, living their ordinary lives. Emma's life had stopped being ordinary the night her car died in a hospital parking lot. She thought about her mother, about the dreams they'd shared when Emma was young, about the family her mother had wanted for her, safety, stability, someone kind who'd love her and give her the life she deserved. Dmitri Antonov was none of those things, but he was hers. I want this baby, Emma said, turning to face him. I'm terrified and have no idea how to be a mother, and our relationship is insane by any normal standard. But I want this. I want us. I want to see what we create together. Dmitri was across the room in seconds, sweeping her up and spinning her around. Emma laughed, dizzy with relief and fear and something dangerously close to joy. We're having a baby, Dmitri said, setting her down gently. We're having a baby, Emma. We're having a baby, she repeated, testing the words. They felt surreal, impossible, perfect. That night, they lay in bed talking about the future, about doctors and nurseries and all the things they'd need to do to prepare, about the fact that they were bringing a child into a world of organized crime, and whether that made them irresponsible or just optimistic. I'll step back, Dmitri said suddenly. Emma turned to look at him. What? From the business, the illegal parts anyway. I'll keep the restaurants and the real estate and the legitimate investments. But the rest, the things that make me a target, the things that put you and our baby at risk, I'll hand them off to my lieutenants. Let them run it. Dmitri, you can't just walk away from your empire. Watch me. His voice was firm. I'm not risking my family for territory and profit. I'm not losing you the way I lost Irina. I'm not letting our child grow up without a father because I was too proud or too greedy to step away. What if your people don't respect you if you step back? What if it causes a power vacuum and more violence? Then I'll handle it, but carefully, strategically, without putting you at risk. Dmitri placed his hand on her still flat stomach. This baby changes everything, Emma. I change everything, starting now. Emma covered his hand with hers. Okay, but you don't have to do it all at once. We have time. Almost 9 months to figure out how to make this work. 6 months, Dmitri corrected. I want everything handled before you're too pregnant to move quickly if we need to run. I want systems in place, security upgraded, backup plans for our backup plans. By the time this baby comes, we'll be as safe as I can make us. Emma should have been comforted by his protectiveness. Instead, she felt a flicker of unease. Dmitri, you can't control everything. Watch me try. That's not healthy. I don't care about healthy. I care about keeping you alive. They stared at each other in the darkness. Emma could feel the tension building, could sense the fight brewing beneath the surface. I'm not fragile, she said quietly. I'm not going to break. You can't wrap me in bubble wrap and expect that to be enough. I'm not saying you're fragile. Then stop treating me like I am. Stop acting like the world is going to collapse if you're not controlling every variable. Emma sat up. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we can't live our lives in fear, Dmitri. We can't raise a child in fear. You think I don't know that? Dmitri's voice rose. You think I want to be this person, this paranoid, controlling bastard who sees threats everywhere? But Emma, I've lost people. I've buried people I loved because I wasn't careful enough, wasn't prepared enough, wasn't willing to do whatever it took to protect them. I'm not making that mistake again. So what's the alternative? Lock me in this house? Never let me leave? Monitor my every move? If that's what it takes. No. Emma's voice was sharp. Absolutely not. I didn't leave one kind of prison just to walk into another. I need freedom, Dmitri. I need to breathe. I need to know that you trust me to take care of myself and our baby. Dmitri ran his hands through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. I do trust you, but I don't trust the world. Then we find a middle ground. Security, yes. Precautions, absolutely. But not prison. Not control disguised as protection. They glared at each other for a long moment. Then Dmitri's shoulders sagged. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. The thought of anything happening to you or this baby makes me insane. I know, but we're partners now. You don't get to make all the decisions just because you're scared. Partners, Dmitri repeated. I'm not very good at that. Then learn. We have 9 months. 6 months. I want everything handled before... Dmitri. Fine, 9 months. We'll figure it out together. Emma lay back down, and after a moment, Dmitri curled around her, his hand resting protectively over her stomach. I love you, he said into the darkness. Emma's breath caught. What? I love you, Emma Morrison. I've probably loved you since that night in the rain, but I definitely love you now. And I'm going to love our child. And I'm going to do everything in my power to give you both the life you deserve, even if it means completely dismantling the life I built before you. Emma turned in his arms to face him. I love you too. And I'm terrified of what that means. But I do. They kissed, slow and sweet and full of promises they had no idea if they could keep. And when Emma finally fell asleep, she dreamed of a little girl with dark hair and Dmitri's eyes, growing up safe and loved, and completely unaware of the violence that had brought her parents together. It was a beautiful dream. Emma just hoped they could make it real. The next morning, Emma woke to find Dmitri already dressed, standing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Russian. His voice was low and controlled, but she could hear the edge of command in every syllable. When he noticed her awake, he ended the call and crossed to the bed. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. What time is it? 7? I have meetings all day, restructuring things like I promised. stepping back from operations, delegating authority, making sure everything's stable before the baby comes. He sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. I want you to see a doctor today, the best obstetrician in the city. I've already made the appointment for 11. Emma opened her mouth to protest being scheduled without her input, then remembered their conversation from last night. Partners. Middle ground. Okay, she said, but next time, ask me first before making appointments. Deal. Marcus will drive you. I'll meet you there if my meetings finish in time. Dimitri, I can drive myself. Your car is still broken, remember? And before you argue, yes, I could buy you a new one today, but I'd rather you let Marcus drive you until we've upgraded security protocols, just for a few weeks. Please. Emma sighed. A few weeks. Then I want my independence back. Fair enough. Dimitri kissed her forehead. There's breakfast downstairs. Eat something. The pregnancy books say you need protein, and you've been reading pregnancy books? I downloaded 7 of them last night while you were sleeping. Did you know that at 6 weeks, the baby is the size of a sweet pea? And by 12 weeks? Emma laughed, cutting him off with a kiss. You're ridiculous. I'm prepared. There's a difference. After Dimitri left for his meetings, Emma showered and dressed, then explored the house more thoroughly than she had before. It was strange thinking of this place as home. Every room was beautiful, carefully designed, filled with art and furniture that cost more than she'd ever imagined owning. But it felt empty somehow, sterile, like a showpiece rather than a home. She found Marcus waiting by a different car, another armored SUV, this one silver instead of black. Miss Morrison, he said with a slight nod. Ready? You know you can call me Emma, right? Mister? Antonov prefers formality when it comes to your safety. Of course he does. Emma climbed into the back seat. Has he always been this controlling, or is the pregnancy making it worse? Marcus's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. Mr. Antonov has always been protective of what matters to him. You matter more than anything ever has. So yes, it's worse. The drive to the medical center took 30 minutes through downtown traffic. Emma watched the city pass outside the tinted windows, thinking about how much had changed in less than 2 weeks. She'd gone from invisible to protected, from alone to loved, from drowning to, well, not exactly floating, but at least treading water with someone willing to keep her head above the surface. The obstetrician's office was in one of the nicest medical buildings Emma had ever seen. Dr. Sarah Kim was young, warm, and immediately put Emma at ease with her straightforward manner. So you're about 6 weeks along based on your last period, Dr. Kim said, reviewing the information Emma had provided. We'll do an ultrasound today to confirm, check for a heartbeat, make sure everything looks healthy. Is it too early for a heartbeat? Not at 6 weeks. We should be able to detect it. Dr. Kim smiled. Nervous? Terrified. That's completely normal. First pregnancy? Yes, and completely unplanned. Also normal. Let's take a look and see what we're working with. The ultrasound room was dim and quiet. Emma lay on the exam table while Dr. Kim prepped the equipment, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. This would make it real, more real than the positive tests, more real than Dimitri's reaction. The door opened and Dimitri slipped in, slightly out of breath. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was... He stopped, taking in the scene. Did I miss it? We're just starting, Dr. Kim said. You must be the father. Dmitri Antonov. He crossed to Emma's side and took her hand. Thank you for seeing us on short notice. Of course. Now, Emma, this is going to be a bit uncomfortable, but it shouldn't hurt. Emma squeezed Dimitri's hand as Dr. Kim began the transvaginal ultrasound. The discomfort was manageable, but the anxiety was overwhelming. What if there was no heartbeat? What if something was wrong? What if... There, Dr. Kim said, turning the screen so they could see. That's your baby. Emma stared at the grainy black and white image. There, in the center, was a tiny blob that looked more like a bean than a human. But it was there. Real. Growing inside her. And that, Dr. Kim adjusted the sound, is the heartbeat. A rapid whooshing filled the room, fast and strong and impossibly beautiful. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Beside her, Dimitri had gone completely still, his grip on her hand almost painful. That's our baby? He whispered. That's your baby, doctor, Kim confirmed. Measuring right, on track for 6 weeks. Heartbeat is strong and healthy. Everything looks perfect. Emma couldn't stop the tears now. They streamed down her face as she listened to that impossibly fast heartbeat, as she stared at the tiny life they'd created, as the full weight of what was happening settled over her. She was going to be a mother. Dmitri was going to be a father. They were creating a family from nothing but recklessness and need and love. Can I get copies? Dmitri asked, his voice rough with emotion. Of the ultrasound images? Of course, I'll print several. After the appointment, after Dr. Kim had gone over nutrition and prenatal vitamins and scheduled the next visit, after Emma had dressed and Dmitri had collected the ultrasound photos like they were precious artifacts, they sat in the back of the SUV in silence. That was real, Emma said finally. That was real, Dmitri agreed. He was still holding one of the ultrasound images, staring at it like it held the meaning of life. We made that. That tiny person is half you and half me. Are you happy? Really happy? Not just saying what you think I need to hear? Dmitri looked at her, and Emma saw tears on his cheeks again, the second time she'd seen this dangerous man cry. I didn't know I could feel like this, he said. Like my heart is too big for my chest. Like everything I've done, everything I've built, every choice I've made was leading to this moment. To you. To our baby. He touched her stomach gently. I'm terrified, Emma. But yes, I'm happy. Happier than I have any right to be. Emma leaned against him, letting him wrap his arms around her. We need to tell people, your family, your friends. I don't have much family left. Some cousins in Russia I haven't spoken to in years. But my inner circle, Marcus, my lieutenants, they should know. They'll protect you better if they understand what's at stake. What about my friends? Dmitri was quiet for a moment. Do you have friends you want to tell? People who won't ask questions about who I am and what I do? Emma realized with a pang that she didn't. Her mother's illness and death had consumed the last 2 years of her life. Friends had drifted away, tired of canceled plans and unreturned calls. The people she worked with at the hospital were colleagues, not confidants. No, she admitted. I guess I don't. Then we'll build new ones. People who understand our life, who won't judge, who will be there for you and the baby. Over the next 3 months, Dmitri kept his promise. He systematically stepped back from the most dangerous aspects of his organization, delegating authority to trusted lieutenants and restructuring operations to minimize his direct involvement. Emma watched him transform from active crime lord to something more like a CEO of questionable enterprises, managing from a distance rather than leading from the front. It wasn't always smooth. There were challenges from rivals who saw his withdrawal as weakness. There was tension from his own people who didn't understand why he was pulling back. But Dmitri handled each situation with the same ruthless efficiency he'd always employed, just with more strategy and less personal violence. Emma, meanwhile, threw herself into the free clinic work. Dmitri had been serious about her running one of his clinics, and she discovered a passion for administration she hadn't known she possessed. She hired staff, organized outreach programs, created partnerships with local hospitals to provide better care for underserved populations. It gave her purpose beyond waiting for the baby, beyond being Dmitri's pregnant girlfriend. They fought sometimes, about his protectiveness that bordered on suffocating, about her stubborn independence that he saw as recklessness, about how to raise a child in a world where danger was always lurking at the edges. But they always came back together, always found middle ground, always remembered that they were building something neither of them had expected, but both of them desperately wanted. At 12 weeks, when Emma's stomach started showing a small bump, Dmitri proposed properly. Not with a grand gesture or a public display, but in their bedroom one night, with just the two of them and the ultrasound photos scattered across the bed. "Marry me," he said simply, holding out a ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that had belonged to his grandmother. "Not because you're pregnant, not because I think I own you, but because I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it." Emma looked at the ring, then at Dmitri, then at the tiny bump where their baby was growing. "Give me 3 months," she said. Dmitri blinked. "What?" 3 months to see if we can really do this. If you can stay stepped back from the dangerous stuff. If I can handle being with someone like you. If we can be partners instead of you trying to protect me from everything." Emma took his hand but didn't take the ring. If we still feel the same way at 6 months pregnant, if we've proven we can make this work, then yes, I'll marry you. That's not a no? That's a test, to make sure this is real and not just adrenaline and danger and pregnancy hormones. Dmitri considered this for a long moment. Then he nodded. 3 months, but I'm keeping the ring ready. I'd expect nothing less. Those 3 months were the hardest and the best of Emma's life. Hard because pregnancy wasn't easy. The morning sickness that lasted all day, the exhaustion, the constant worry about whether she was doing everything right. Hard because learning to navigate a relationship with someone as complicated as Dmitri required constant communication and compromise. Hard because the world kept trying to intrude with threats and challenges and reminders of the life they were trying to leave behind. But also the best, because Dmitri kept his word, he stayed back. He let Emma make decisions about her own safety and schedule. He supported her work at the clinic even when it meant she was out of his sight for hours. He showed her through actions, not just words, that he could be the partner she needed. And Emma learned to trust, to believe that his protectiveness came from love, not control, to accept help without feeling weak, to understand that letting someone take care of you didn't mean losing yourself. At 20 weeks, they found out they were having a girl. Dmitri cried again at the ultrasound, watching their daughter move on the screen, her tiny heart still beating that impossibly fast rhythm. "A daughter," he whispered. "We're having a daughter, Emma." "Are you disappointed? I know some men want sons." "Disappointed? I'm terrified. Girls are supposed to be harder to raise, more complicated, more likely to date terrible men who'll break their hearts." Emma laughed. "Says the terrible man who won her mother's heart." "Exactly. I know what to watch for." But Dmitri was smiling, his hand on Emma's belly where their daughter was growing. "She's going to be beautiful like you, strong like you, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure she knows her worth." That night, Emma gave him her answer. "Yes," she said, holding out her hand for the ring he'd been carrying for 2 months. "Yes, I'll marry you. Not because I'm pregnant, or because you've proven yourself, or because I need the security, but because I love you, because you're my partner, because I can't imagine facing what comes next without you beside me." Dmitri slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd never thought to say. They were married 2 weeks later in a small ceremony at the house. Just Marcus and a few of Dmitri's most trusted people, a judge who owed him favors, and Emma wearing a simple white dress that accommodated her growing belly. There was no church, no big celebration, no pretense that this was anything except two people choosing each other against all odds. But when Emma said her vows, when she looked into Dmitri's eyes and promised to love him through whatever came, she meant every word. And when Dmitri promised to protect her, to cherish her, to be the man she deserved instead of the man he'd been, Emma believed him. The last trimester was both endless and too short. Emma's belly grew until she felt like she was carrying a basketball. She waddled instead of walked. She couldn't sleep comfortably. She ate everything in sight and cried at commercials and generally felt like her body had been taken over by an alien. But Dmitri was there through all of it. He rubbed her feet when they swelled. He made midnight runs for whatever strange food she was craving. He talked to her belly every night, telling their daughter stories about her mother's courage and strength, promising her a life full of love even if it couldn't always be safe. Emma's water broke on a Tuesday afternoon while she was at the clinic. Marcus drove her to the hospital at speeds that were definitely illegal, calling Dmitri en route to make sure he'd be there. Dmitri arrived just as they were checking Emma into a private room, because of course he'd arranged for a private room complete with security outside the door. "I'm here," he said, taking her hand. "I'm right here, love. I'm not going anywhere." Labor was long and painful and terrifying. 22 hours of contractions and breathing exercises and wondering if her body was capable of doing what it needed to do. Dmitri stayed beside her the entire time, letting her squeeze his hand hard enough to leave bruises, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, telling her she was strong enough for this even when she insisted she wasn't. And then, at 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday in late spring, their daughter was born. The doctor placed her on Emma's chest, a tiny, screaming, perfect human being with a shock of dark hair and eyes that would probably be brown like her father's. Emma stared at this miracle, this impossible life they'd created, and felt her heart crack open in ways she'd never imagined. She's perfect, Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. Dmitri, she's perfect. Dmitri was crying too, his hand gentle on their daughter's tiny head. She's everything. You're everything. Emma, thank you. Thank you for her. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for giving me a family when I thought I'd lost my chance. They named her Irina after the woman Dmitri had lost. Emma had suggested it, wanting to honor the past while building toward the future. It felt right. It felt like completion. The first few months with a newborn were chaos, sleepless nights and endless diapers and figuring out how to keep a tiny human alive. But Emma and Dmitri navigated it together, learning as they went, making mistakes and fixing them, building a life around this small person who had completely rearranged their priorities. Dmitri was a surprisingly natural father. He could calm Irina when Emma couldn't. He changed diapers without complaint. He walked the floors at 3 a.m. singing Russian lullabies his grandmother had taught him. He was gentle and patient and completely devoted to both his daughter and his wife. Emma watched him become this person and fell in love all over again. A year passed, then another. The threats that Emma had feared never completely disappeared, but they became manageable. Dmitri had built enough distance from the dangerous operations that most rivals saw him as retired, no longer worth targeting. The few who didn't got dealt with swiftly and decisively, not by Dmitri personally, but by the organization he'd built and the people he'd trusted to maintain it. Emma's clinic thrived. She expanded to a second location, then a third. She hired dozens of staff members and helped thousands of patients who couldn't afford care anywhere else. It gave her purpose and identity beyond being Dmitri Antonov's wife, and he supported every bit of it. They bought a house in the countryside, not to replace the city house, but to have somewhere safe and quiet, where Irina could grow up away from the dangers of Dmitri's world. It had land and gardens and room for Emma to plant flowers like her mother used to. It had security, of course, cameras and guards and protocols, but it felt more like a home than a fortress. On an autumn afternoon, when Irina was 2 years old and running through the garden chasing butterflies, Emma stood on the porch watching her daughter play and felt something she'd never expected to feel again after her mother died. Peace. Dmitri came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How much has changed? How different my life is from what I imagined. Better or worse?" Emma leaned back against him, watching Irina's dark curls bounce as she ran. "Different. Harder in some ways, but so much better in the ones that matter. Any regrets?" Emma thought about the night her car died, about the choice to get into a stranger's car, about every decision that had led from that frozen parking lot to this warm afternoon. "No," she said. "Not a single one. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner." Dmitri kissed her temple, though maybe we both needed to go through what we did to be ready for each other. Deep thoughts from the former crime lord. Reformed crime lord. There's a difference. Emma turned in his arms to face him. "Are you happy? Really happy with this quiet life? Don't you miss the excitement, the power, the not even a little bit?" Dmitri cut her off with a kiss. "Everything I want is right here. You, Irina, this home we've built. I'd burn every empire I ever created before I'd trade a single moment of this." Irina ran up to them then, dirt on her dress and flowers clutched in her small fists. "Mama! Papa! Look what I found!" Emma crouched down to admire the wildflowers. Weeds, really, but beautiful in their own way. "They're lovely, sweetheart. Should we put them in water?" "Yes. And then can we read stories? The one about the princess?" "The one where the princess saves herself?" Dmitri asked, scooping his daughter into his arms. "Yes, that one." They went inside together, this family built from violence and choice and love that had somehow survived everything thrown at it. Emma arranged the wildflowers in a small vase while Dmitri settled Irina on the couch with her favorite book. Later, after Irina was asleep in her bed upstairs, after Emma and Dmitri had checked the locks and the alarms and the cameras, they sat together by the fireplace in comfortable silence. "Detective Chen called me today," Emma said quietly. Dmitri tensed slightly. "What did she want?" "To check in, to make sure I was okay. She said she'd heard about Irina. Wanted to congratulate me. That's unusually civil for someone who tried to flip you against me." She also said something interesting. She said the organized crime rate in the city has dropped 30% since you stepped back. That Victor's territory never destabilized the way everyone expected. That whoever took over your operations is running them more cleanly than you did. Marcus is good at what he does. Better than I was, honestly. Less personal investment means better judgment.
She asked if I was happy. Emma looked at Dmitri. If I felt safe. If I needed help. What did you tell her? That I'm happier than I've ever been. That I chose this life with my eyes open. That the only help I need is someone to watch Irina tomorrow afternoon so I can finish the budget report for the clinic. Dmitri smiled. I can do that. I know. That's why I love you. Emma kissed him, slow and sweet, tasting the life they'd built together.
Outside, wind rustled through the trees and night settled over their small piece of the world. Upstairs, their daughter slept safe and loved, completely unaware of the violence that had brought her parents together. Emma had started this journey alone and drowning, working herself to death to pay off debts that weren't hers, invisible to everyone except the collectors who called 3 times a day. She'd been ready to give up, ready to accept that survival was the best she could hope for. And then a stranger had appeared on a freezing November night and offered her a ride that changed everything. The road from that parking lot to this peaceful evening had been terrifying and dangerous and full of choices that should have ended badly. But somehow, through luck or fate or stubborn refusal to let go of each other, they'd made it. Emma thought about her mother sometimes, about what she'd think of the life her daughter had built, about whether she'd approve of Dmitri or be horrified by his past, about the granddaughter she'd never meet. She'd like to think her mother would understand, would see past the surface to the man who'd given Emma back her life, would recognize that safety wasn't always found in conventional places or with conventional people. What are you thinking about? Dmitri asked, breaking into her thoughts. My mom, wondering what she'd think of all this. She'd think you're extraordinary, just like I do. Dmitri pulled Emma closer. And she'd be right. Emma settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong and alive. Outside, the world continued turning with all its dangers and uncertainties. But inside these walls, in this home they'd created, there was only love and safety and the promise of tomorrow. Emma Morrison, now Emma Antonov, had been rescued by a crime lord on a freezing night. She'd been kidnapped, threatened, and pulled into a world of violence she'd never imagined. She'd gotten pregnant accidentally and married recklessly, and built a life from pieces that shouldn't fit together. And she wouldn't change a single moment of it, because in the end, the storm that had stranded her in that parking lot hadn't destroyed her life. It had delivered her to exactly where she needed to be, to the person who saw her when everyone else looked through her, to the love that transformed them both, to the family that made every risk worthwhile. Emma had stopped running. She'd found home. And this time she was never letting go.